Have you ever had one of those moments, where something really complex suddenly just snaps into place?
Oh, absolutely. That feeling when a puzzle piece just clicks.
Exactly. And you realize something you thought was, incredibly difficult is actually, pretty clear.
It's a great feeling. Or maybe you catch yourself wondering, why on earth did I react like that?
Or why does that one idea just stick in my head no matter what? It's fascinating.
It really is. Those moments are like little glimpses into how our minds work, the machinery behind our thoughts and feelings.
Totally. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're taking a deep dive into human psychology.
We want to pull back the curtain a bit. Look at those hidden biases that shape how we see things, how we choose things.
Even what we remember. And we'll look at some surprising gaps in what we think we know.
Yeah, the illusion of knowledge. Our mission here is really to give you some powerful insights, to unpack how your mind really works.
And spot those clever tricks it sometimes plays on us.
Exactly. It's like a shortcut to becoming more aware, more informed, more in control, maybe.
Mental mastery, you could say.
Something like that. And we're grounding this in a lot of research, but presenting it simply.
And crucially, we're using lots of vivid, real-life examples, especially from, daily life here in India.
That's right. The goal is that every idea, every nugget of knowledge feels instantly familiar, relevant to your life.
So get ready. Let's decode your mind's hidden tricks. Okay, so to kick things off, let's get a handle on what we actually mean by understanding the human mind. Human psychology, it sounds maybe a bit academic.
It can sound that way, but really it's super practical. At its core, it's just about understanding how our brain functions.
Like what we think and why we think it.
Exactly. And how we feel those emotions, and then how all of that translates into our actions, our behavior in different situations.
So it's like getting to know the inner workings of yourself and maybe others too.
Precisely. Think of it like having a bit of a user manual for the mind, the software running things.
I like that. It's like being a detective for your own thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. And let's take a really common example. Imagine you're in class, or maybe a work meeting.
Okay.
And the teacher, or maybe your boss, asks you to answer a question in front of everyone.
Oh yeah, that feeling. Your heart starts pounding.
Right. Maybe your hands get a bit clammy, maybe tremble a little. Your voice might even shake.
Definitely happens.
Well, that's a classic example of what psychologists call fear of judgment. It's a very real psychological behavior.
So what's happening inside that fear directly causes the outside reaction?
Absolutely. The internal feeling, that rush of anxiety, triggers those physical responses. It shows how feelings influence our actions, often without us consciously deciding.
It's a direct link. Mind and body.
It is.
Right.
And it's not just about one feeling or one thought. The key thing here is that thoughts, emotions, and behavior aren't separate things.
They're all connected.
Deeply interconnected. They form a continuous cycle. One influences the other, constantly shaping our daily experiences, how we see the world, how we interact.
Wow. So it's like a feedback loop running all the time.
Building right on that, let's talk about behavior. Or, Vyavhar in Hindi, this is the bit that everyone else sees.
Right, the outward expression of what's going on inside.
Exactly. Behavior is how we act in any situation. It's the visible output, you could say, of that mix of thoughts and emotions we were just talking about.
Okay, give me an example.
All right, think about a crowded bus in India. Very common scenario, right? You spot an empty seat, you're heading for it.
Yeah.
And just as you're about to sit, someone else swoops in and grabs it.
Okay. I can picture that. So what happens next?
Well, your Vyavhar, your reaction, depends. If you instantly feel that surge of anger, how dare they?
Yeah.
Maybe you start yelling, confronting them.
Yeah, I can see that happening. The anger takes over.
Exactly. Your emotion directly drives your behavior. But what if your internal response is different?
Like what?
Maybe you feel annoyed, sure, but you take a breath, think, okay, shouting won't help. And instead, you calmly complain to the conductor.
Okay. So a more controlled reaction.
Right. Your behavior is more measured, reflects a different thought process. Same situation, same trigger, but different internal responses lead to totally different outward actions.
That makes sense. How we react isn't automatic, even if it feels that way.
It often isn't. And this leads us nicely into something important: initial biases. Specifically, stereotyping.
Okay, how does that fit in?
Well, sometimes we make super quick judgments based on very little. In that bus example, maybe the person who took the seat is wearing certain clothes or speaks a certain way.
And you instantly think,
Your mind might jump to, oh, this person looks suspicious, or they must be rude. That quick labeling based on superficial stuff, not who they actually are.
That's stereotyping.
That's stereotyping. It's a fast mental shortcut, putting people in boxes, but often it's just plain wrong.
Yeah.
Stops us seeing the real person.
Okay, so we've got this link. Thoughts, emotions, behavior, they all feed into each other. Now this is where it gets really interesting, right? The mind's hidden tricks.
Exactly. Our brains are amazing, incredibly efficient, always trying to save energy, make quick decisions, especially in our busy world.
Makes sense. So how do they do that?
Well, one way is by using mental shortcuts. Psychologists call them heuristics. Think of them as mental rules of thumb.
Okay, like ingrained ways of thinking.
Sort of. They help us navigate daily life quickly without analyzing every single detail. They're great for speed.
But there's a catch.
There's always a catch. These shortcuts, while useful, often lead to systematic errors in our thinking. Predictable mistakes.
And those mistakes are what we call
Cognitive biases. And here's the thing. These biases can really distort how we see the world.
how so?
They can mess with our understanding, confuse how we see ourselves, warp our decisions, make us believe things that aren't true, or act against our own interests.
And we don't even realize it's happening.
Often, no, it's happening under the surface. So let's start peeling back these layers. Let's look at some common biases that affect your life probably every day.
All right, first up, confirmation bias. This sounds important. You called it Pilisoskosekmanlina.
That's a good way to put it, clinging to your first thought, or what you already believe. Basically, your mind tends to notice, remember, and actively look for stuff that supports what you already think is true.
Okay. And what about stuff that contradicts my beliefs?
Well, your mind tends to conveniently ignore that, or downplay it, dismiss it. It's like wearing mental filters that only let in the confirming evidence.
Wow, like you only see what you want to see.
Pretty much. It makes your own views feel stronger, more justified.
I can see how that would happen. Where do we see this in India, for example?
Oh, everywhere. Politics is a classic example. Think about it. If someone strongly supports a particular politician or party,
Yeah.
they'll often only pay attention to news stories or examples that make their side look good. Anything negative, they'll dismiss it as fake news, biased reporting, whatever. It doesn't fit their picture.
So they filter out anything that challenges their view.
Exactly. Their mind is protecting their existing belief.
And this has a dark side you mentioned.
It really does. It's a huge reason why fake news spreads so fast. People share stuff that feels right, that matches their biases, without checking if it's actually true.
Especially if it triggers strong emotions, like anger or fear.
Especially then, critical thinking goes out the window.
And social media. Algorithms must love this bias.
Oh, they exploit it brilliantly. They show you more and more content you already like or agree with.
Creating that echo chamber effect.
Precisely. You end up feeling like everyone thinks like me, or my view is the only right one. It reinforces your bias, makes you less open to other perspectives.
That's quite scary, actually. It isolates you.
It can. But what's fascinating is that ancient Indian wisdom actually offers ways to fight this.
Really? Like what?
Well, Vedanta philosophy has the concept of neti.
Meaning, not this, not this.
Right. It's a practice of constantly questioning your perceptions, your thoughts, negating them until you get to a deeper truth. It's the total opposite of confirmation bias.
Wow. Instead of clinging, you're letting go, questioning.
Exactly. And think about Buddha's teaching. Believed knowledge is the greatest darkness.
Meaning true wisdom isn't just accepting what feels comfortable.
Right. It comes from testing your beliefs, from inquiry, not just blind acceptance. The Charvaka school also emphasized logic, proof challenging beliefs without evidence.
So this isn't a new problem. People have been thinking about this for centuries.
Absolutely. Practices like Vipassana, seeing things as they truly are without bias, connect to this, and Upanishadic ideas about truth being beyond mere belief.
Okay, so knowing this bias exists is one thing. How do we actually protect ourselves, build that mental immunity?
Good question. First step, actively challenge your own thoughts. Get in the habit of asking yourself, am I really seeing this clearly? Or could I be wrong here?
Like playing devil's advocate with yourself.
Exactly. Second, diversify where you get your information. Don't just stick to one news source or one social media bubble. Actively seek out different viewpoints,
Even ones you disagree with.
especially ones you disagree with. It might feel uncomfortable, but try to find arguments or facts that disprove your current belief. It actually strengthens your understanding even if you don't change your mind.
That sounds hard but important. What else?
Practice intellectual humility. Be genuinely open to the idea that you might be wrong. Saying, perhaps I am wrong, isn't weakness, it's strength. It's essential for growth.
Okay. Be humble, be open.
And finally, engage in healthy debate. Talk to people with different views, but aim to understand them, not just to win the argument. Listen more than you talk, perhaps.
Okay, let's move to the next bias. Anchoring bias. You called this Pela number Sunkia Takjana, getting stuck on the first number.
Exactly. This happens when the very first piece of information we get about something, especially a number, heavily influences all our later judgments about it.
How does that work?
Our mind sort of anchors to that first bit of data. Everything else is then judged relative to that starting point, even if that starting point is totally random or misleading.
Okay, I need an example. Where does this happen?
Oh, shopping. Classic example. You're in a shop looking at a kurta. The salesperson says, this is $3,000.
Okay, pricey.
Right, but then they lean in, but for you, special price, $1,500.
Suddenly it sounds like a great deal. 50% off.
Exactly. Your mind anchored to the 3,000. So 1,500 seems fantastic. You might buy it thinking you got a bargain.
But maybe the Kurta was only ever worth like 800.
Precisely. The 3,000 was just an anchor to make the 1,500 look good.
Wow. I see that online too with MRPs crossed out.
Absolutely. That huge MRP of 10,000 next to a deal price of 4,999. The 10,000 is the anchor. Makes the 14,999 seem like an unbelievable steal.
Even if the item isn't really worth 999 either.
Often, yes. It's pure psychological manipulation of perceived value.
So this anchoring thing is used against us a lot.
Constantly. In marketing, like we said, with inflated original prices. In negotiations, too.
Like job interviews.
Definitely. The first salary figure mentioned, whether by you or them, often becomes the anchor for the whole negotiation. It can really limit the final offer if the anchor is set too low.
That's a bit scary. What about politics?
Politicians use it too. They might throw out a massive number about alleged past corruption, a 50 lakh crore scam, for instance.
Okay, and the effect is?
By setting that huge anchor, any current issues, even if significant, can seem small by comparison. It frames the whole discussion.
Wow, it shifts the goalpost. And coaching centers, you mentioned them.
Yes. Quoting a super high original fee, maybe 2 lakh, then offering a special discount to, say, 79,999 warrant. The high anchor makes the discounted price seem reasonable, even generous.
Even if the real value is much less, it's all about perception.
It is. And again, ancient wisdom saw this coming. Chanakya Niti advises something like, even if someone seems trustworthy at first glance, test them afterwards.
So don't trust that first impression, that first number.
Exactly. Chanakya understood that the initial appearance, the first anchor, can be misleading. He urged people to look deeper, to test, to find the real value, not just accept the surface presentation.
It's about critical thinking, not just accepting the first thing you hear.
Precisely. So protection. First, always question that initial number or piece of info. Ask yourself, is this real or is it just an anchor?
Don't take it at face value.
Never. Second, do your own research. Don't rely on their number. Find out what things are really worth. Establish your own reference point.
Become informed independently.
Yes. And, crucially, slow down your decisions. Don't rush, especially if you feel pressured or sense a strong anchor. Give yourself time to think, maybe sleep on it.
Let the initial effect wear off.
Exactly. A calm mind is less easily swayed by that first number. Avoid quick judgments.
Okay, next up, negativity bias. Remembering the bad stuff more. Negative Chisenkos yada yada rakna. This sounds familiar.
Oh, it's incredibly common. Our brains are just wired to give more weight, more attention, and more memory space to negative experiences compared to positive ones.
Why would our brains do that? Seems counterproductive to happiness.
Well, from an evolutionary perspective, paying attention to threats, negative things, was crucial for survival. Remembering danger helps you avoid it next time.
Okay. Survival instinct.
Yeah.
But it means one bad comment can ruin your day.
Absolutely. The sting of one criticism often outweighs heaps of praise. It just sticks in your mind longer, feels more intense.
Give me an example.
Okay, you give a brilliant presentation at work or college. Everyone loves it. People are congratulating you.
Sounds good.
But one person says, maybe quietly, it dragged a bit in the middle.
Oh no.
What do you think you'll be replaying in your head later?
Definitely that one negative comment. Not all the positive stuff.
Exactly. That's negativity bias in action. It overshadows the good.
We're like getting exam results. great marks in 5 subjects, bad marks in 1.
And you spend all day worrying about that one subject,
Again.
ignoring the overall success.
Totally. Or even in relationships, like a marriage proposal. Everything's perfect, but someone points out one tiny flaw.
Height is a bit less, or something superficial, and suddenly that negative point looms large, making you doubt everything else.
It's powerful. And what's the dark side here? How is it used against us?
Well, look at online culture. Troll culture thrives on this. Negative, sensational, aggressive comments get more attention, more engagement. They stick.
Because our brains are drawn to the negative.
Partly, yes. It fuels online negativity cycles. And personally, it really impacts mental health.
How so?
It feeds depression and anxiety. Constantly dwelling on small negatives, ignoring the positives, leads to pessimism, low confidence, feeling like things are worse than they are.
Like wearing gray-tinted glasses all the time.
A good way to put it. And news media, they know all about this.
They focus on the bad news.
Often, yes. Sensational, alarming stories grab attention, evoke strong emotions like fear, and keep people watching. Negative news sells, boosts TRP ratings.
Because it's more memorable, more impactful emotionally.
Exactly. But again, Indian philosophy offers ways to manage this.
Like what?
Buddhism talks about the mind being everything. What you think, you become. Negativity is seen as a kind of mental poison. Suffering is linked to negative perception.
So controlling your thoughts is key.
Yes. And the Bhagavad Gita says the mind can be your friend or your enemy. It stresses training the mind, not letting it drag you into negativity.
You have to choose to focus it.
Right. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras talk about Chitta-vritti-nirodha, controlling those mental fluctuations, those thought waves. Negativity is a vritti you can learn to manage.
Okay, so how do we build this mental resilience? Fight back against the negativity magnet.
First, actively practice gratitude. Make it a daily habit. Consciously notice and acknowledge the good things, big or small.
Right.
Write them down even.
Rewire the brain to look for positives.
Exactly. Second, practice positive reframing. When something bad happens, consciously try to find a positive angle, or at least a neutral learning perspective. What can I learn from this instead of, this is terrible?
Change the story you tell yourself about it.
Yes. Third, mindful thought tracking. Just become aware of your thoughts. Notice when you're dwelling on the negative. Then gently, consciously shift your focus.
Not fighting it, just redirecting.
Redirecting is a good word. Also, learn to separate feeling from fact. Just because you feel something is bad doesn't make it objectively catastrophic. Challenge the feeling with logic.
Is this really as bad as I feel it is?
Good question to ask. And finally, maybe use a mantra. This is just a feeling. I am not this feeling. It creates distance, helps you observe the emotion without being consumed by it.
And maybe just 5 minutes of quiet time each day without the phone.
That helps enormously. Builds self-awareness, calms the mental chatter.
Right, bias number 4. Stereotyping bias. Sab ek jz hotain. Everyone in a group is the same. This one feels very socially relevant.
Extremely. This bias is when we judge an individual based not on who they are, but on preconceived ideas about the group they belong to.
Group meaning like gender, caste, religion, region.
Exactly. Profession, appearance, anything. We slap a label on them based on the group and don't bother to see the actual person underneath.
Like putting people in boxes without looking inside.
Perfectly put. We touched on it with the bus example, judging someone by their shirt, but it runs much deeper.
Give me some more examples, maybe Indian context ones.
Sure. Assumptions like all people from Northeast India look Chinese and aren't real Indians. That's a harmful stereotype based on appearance and region.
Or assuming someone studying, say, mechanical engineering can't possibly be good at coding.
Yes. Or ingrained beliefs like girls are weak drivers or boys don't cry. These limit people based purely on gender stereotypes.
And of course, prejudice based on caste or religion still sadly exists.
Definitely. Those are toxic stereotypes denying individual worth based solely on a group label they didn't choose.
So why do our brains do this, if it's so inaccurate and harmful?
Well, again, it's partly a cognitive shortcut. The brain likes efficiency. It's faster to categorize people into groups and apply a ready-made label than to understand each unique person.
Saves mental energy, but sacrifices accuracy.
Big time. And then there's social conditioning. We absorb these stereotypes from childhood, from family, friends, society. They become default ways of thinking if we don't question them.
We just learn them without realizing.
Often, yes. And media plays a huge role, too. Movies, TV shows, even news often reinforce stereotypes.
Like always casting villains from a certain background.
Yeah.
Or portraying certain communities in limited roles.
Exactly. These repeated portrayals make the stereotype seem normal or even true in our minds.
What are the real dangers here? It's not just about being wrong, is it?
Not at all. It leads to real harm. Unfair treatment, lost opportunities, people denied jobs or respect just because of a label.
Preventing them from showing who they really are.
Yes. And sometimes it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The person being stereotyped might start believing it themselves and acting accordingly.
Wow. They internalize the negative label.
It can happen, and at its worst, when stereotypes mix with prejudice, it fuels discrimination, social tension, even violence between groups. It's incredibly destructive.
So what's the antidote? Indian philosophy must have something to say here.
It does. St. Kabir's wisdom is profound. Don't
Ask the caste of a holy person, ask about their wisdom.
Exactly. Judge people by their knowledge, their character, their actions, not their group identity. Look beyond the label to the actual person.
Powerful. So how do we apply this? How do we break these mental boxes?
First, self-check your thoughts. When you find yourself generalizing about a group, stop. Ask, do I really know everyone in this group? Or am I just using a shortcut?
Catch yourself doing it.
Yes. Second, actively seek out diversity. Interact with people from different backgrounds, cultures, beliefs. Real-life experience is the best stereotype buster.
Get to know people as individuals.
Absolutely. Third, maybe a media detox.
Right.
Be mindful of the content you consume. Avoid stuff that reinforces toxic stereotypes.
Choose your inputs wisely.
Right. And finally, gently educate others. If you hear someone using a stereotype, maybe challenge it gently. Not to preach, but to raise awareness. Do you think that's true for everyone?
Encourage them to think beyond the label, too. Okay, we've looked at how our minds have these built-in biases, these shortcuts. But now we're shifting gears slightly, right, to how these can be deliberately used by others.
Exactly. We're moving from the mind's automatic tendencies to how those tendencies can be intentionally manipulated. Someone else pulling the strings, basically.
Right. Let's start with emotional hijack. What exactly is that?
Emotional hijack is when a really strong like intense anger or overwhelming fear, maybe even extreme joy, completely takes over your rational thinking.
Takes over. How?
It's like the emotional part of your brain bypasses the logical part, the prefrontal cortex. That part responsible for reasoning and control gets temporarily shut down.
So you act without thinking, impulsively.
Pretty much. Your emotions grab the steering wheel, and logic gets locked in the back seat. You react purely from the feeling, often regretting it later.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Like sending an angry text instantly.
Classic example. Your friend makes a joke on WhatsApp that hits a nerve. You fire off something abusive without pausing. Later, you cool down and realize, whoa, that was an overreaction.
Yeah, you're hijacked by anger. Or road rage, maybe.
Perfect example. A small incident triggers massive anger, leading to shouting or confrontation. Your emotions took control.
Okay, so how are these emotions used as traps by manipulators? Let's start with fear.
Fear's basic function is survival, right? Warns us of danger. But manipulators exaggerate or invent fears to control people.
Like the fear of public speaking we mentioned. People will laugh.
That's often a learned fear, yes. But manipulators weaponize fear. Think of fake gurus or dubious consultants.
What do they do?
They might say, without my help, you'll definitely fail, or only I can save you from this terrible future. They play on your anxieties to sell their services or gain control.
Making you dependent through fear.
Exactly. Then there's anger, gusa. Healthy anger protects boundaries, but uncontrolled anger harms.
Like that road rage example, taking out a bad day on someone else.
Yes. And the dark use. Politicians are masters at this
Okay.
by creating us versus them narratives. They fuel anger between groups based on religion, community, whatever, to divide people and consolidate their own power. Directing anger benefits them.
Wow. Manipulating collective anger for political gain.
It's a common tactic. And then jealousy, Jalen. A little bit might motivate us, but it's a trap when someone else's success makes you feel miserable.
Like when your friend gets a great job, and instead of being happy, you feel down, comparing yourself.
Exactly. It pulls you into a negative spiral of comparison and inadequacy.
And social media seems built on this.
It thrives on it. Everyone posts their perfect, filtered lives, amazing holidays, successes, happy families.
Making you feel like my life is boring or I'm not good enough.
Precisely. This constant comparison breeds jealousy, anxiety, depression. The platforms want you engaged, even if it's through negative feelings like envy or FOMO.
So how do we stop these emotional hijacks? Regain control.
First, know your triggers. What situations or comments reliably set off strong emotions in you? Awareness is step one.
Identify your personal hot buttons.
Yes. Second, practice the pause, the 10-second rule. When you feel that strong emotion rising, stop, breathe, count to 10 before you react.
Create that gap for logic to return.
Exactly. Third, talk it out. Share your feelings with someone you trust, or write them down. Externalizing helps process them.
Don't just let them swirl inside.
Right. Fourth, try that daily silence practice we mentioned. Just 5 minutes. It builds self-awareness, helps you observe emotions without getting swept away.
Like watching the waves instead of being the wave.
Good analogy. And finally, use that awareness mantra. This is just a feeling. I am not this feeling. It helps you detach and choose your response.
Okay, now let's get into the really deliberate stuff. Psychological manipulation, the dark side, where people intentionally mess with your head for their benefit.
Right. Not just biases happening automatically, but someone actively using psychology against you. Who does this?
Oh, it's used by politicians, cult leaders, toxic people in relationships, advertisers, scammers, anyone trying to control or exploit others. It's about knowing how to push your buttons.
Okay, what are some key techniques? You mentioned repetition.
Yes. This is surprisingly effective. Just repeating a lie, a message, or a slogan over and over makes it feel more true. Why? Just because it's familiar.
Exactly. Our brains process familiar things more easily, and we mistake that ease for truthfulness. Think of advertising jingles.
Like Thonda MATLAB Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Repeat it endlessly.
Perfect example. It wasn't just selling a drink. It drilled an association into our minds. Political slogans work the same way. Repetition makes them feel like facts.
Okay. What about fear used deliberately?
This is different from just feeling scared. Here, the manipulator creates or amplifies fear to force a decision.
Like,
An aggressive salesperson might say, if you don't buy this insurance today, you'll have no protection when disaster strikes. They're using fear of a negative future to rush you into buying.
making you decide based on anxiety, not logic.
Precisely. Then there's emotional blackmail. This one's nasty.
How does it work?
Using your emotions, guilt, love, duty against you, or using their emotions dramatically. Things like, if you leave me, I'll die. That creates immense guilt.
Oh, wow. Or in the Indian context, maybe family pressure.
Yes, like, your parents sacrificed so much. How can you marry against their wishes? It uses guilt and obligation to manipulate your choices.
That's powerful. And social media manipulation, you mentioned algorithms and FOMO.
Yeah, the algorithms create those filter bubbles, remember? Showing you only what you already agree with.
Reinforcing your biases, making you think your view is the only one.
Right. And FOMO, fear of missing out. Seeing everyone's curated perfect lives online makes you feel inadequate, anxious, depressed.
And those likes and notifications keep you hooked.
Exactly. They create dopamine loops, making you crave external validation, constantly checking, constantly comparing. It's a deliberate design to keep you engaged and vulnerable.
So how do we build mental armor against all this manipulation?
The most powerful tool is awareness. The moment you recognize a manipulation tactic being used, they're using fear here, or this is emotional blackmail, its power over you shrinks dramatically.
Just knowing the game helps you resist it.
Massively. Second, learn to say no. Set boundaries. Don't automatically give in to emotional demands. Your autonomy is key.
Okay. Be firm.
Third, always ask, what's the real intent here? Look beyond the surface. Why are they saying this? What did they gain? Question the motive.
Dig deeper than the words.
Yes. Fourth, trust your gut, but verify with your mind. If something feels off, pay attention. But then, use logic and facts to check that feeling. Don't just react emotionally.
Intuition plus analysis.
Good way to put it. And finally, don't be afraid to unfollow, block, detox. If certain people, feeds, or news sources are constantly trying to manipulate you, distance yourself. Protect your mental space.
Prioritize your own well-being. Okay, our minds are powerful, but they have these biases. They can be manipulated. And now you're saying we also have gaps in what we actually know, even when we think we know something.
Exactly. Even with these amazing brains, we often operate under the illusion of explanatory depth. Or simply put, half knowledge at huragain.
Illusion of explanatory depth, what does that mean?
It means we often believe we understand something really well, in detail, when actually our knowledge is pretty shallow. We confuse being familiar with the topic with truly understanding it deeply.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Ask someone, do you know how a zipper works? Most people will say yes, they use them every day.
Right. Seems simple enough.
But then ask them to explain the exact mechanism, how the teeth interlock, the role of the wedge. Most people get stuck very quickly. They realize they only knew it worked, not how.
So we mistake familiarity for real understanding.
Very often. We feel we know things just because we've heard the terms or used the object.
How does this illusion get created in our minds?
Well, repetition plays a role again. Hearing something often makes it feel familiar and thus understood.
Even if we haven't really grasped it.
Right. Also, blind trust in authority. If an expert says something, we might assume we understand it deeply just because they said it without doing the mental work ourselves.
We outsource the understanding and the internet.
Huge factor. Quick searches, reading summaries, it gives a feeling of instant knowledge, but it's often just surface level information. We think because we can look it up, we do understand it.
Okay, so we had this illusion of knowing more than we do. How is this exploited?
Brands and self-proclaimed gurus are brilliant at this. They give you just enough catchy info to make you feel informed and attracted.
But not enough detail to confuse you or expose their lack of depth?
Exactly. They play on your illusion. Fake gurus exploit the overconfidence that comes with half knowledge. They say, I know everything, you know nothing, and people, unsure of their own shaky understanding, believe them.
Wow. And pseudoscience. Things like miracle cures.
That's built entirely on this. Wear this crystal, it'll balance your energy. It sounds vaguely scientific or spiritual, playing on half-understood concepts to sell illogical beliefs and products.
Preying on hope and lack of deep knowledge.
Yes, and it can get even darker. Manipulation can even target your memories by constantly feeding you a distorted version of the past. Your family never supported you, or that event didn't happen like you remember. Over time, it can make you doubt your own reality, making you more vulnerable. This is called gaslighting.
That's incredibly disturbing. And the real-world consequences of half-knowledge can be severe.
Tragically, yes. Think about those WhatsApp forwards spreading rumors that lead to mob violence. People believe blindly because the message confirms a bias or fear, and they lack deep understanding or critical thinking.
Or fake medical advice causing actual harm or death.
Absolutely. People trust a viral post over qualified doctors, and self-proclaimed experts online giving terrible advice that leads to mental breakdowns or financial ruin.
That saying, a half-doctor is more dangerous than no doctor.
It's grimly accurate. Incomplete or misunderstood knowledge can be incredibly dangerous when acted upon.
Okay, this is serious. How do we fight this illusion? Cultivate real understanding.
A great self-check is the teach to a 10-year-old test.
Explain it simply enough for a child.
Exactly. If you can't break down a complex topic into simple terms a 10-year-old could grasp, you probably don't understand it as deeply as you think. It reveals your own gaps.
That's a brilliant test.
Well,
Cells.
Focus on depth over breadth. Don't just skim 10 topics. Pick one or two and go deep. Study it, practice it, wrestle with it. True mastery comes from depth.
Go deep, not wide.
Yes. And always take a full view. Look at all sides of an issue, the pros and cons, different perspectives. Avoid just sticking to the angle that confirms your bias.
Get the whole picture.
Right. Another great technique. Teach to learn. Explaining what you've learned to someone else forces you to clarify your own thinking and exposes weak spots in your understanding.
The act of teaching solidifies your knowledge.
It really does. And finally, back to humility. Always be open to, perhaps I am wrong. That attitude protects you from the illusion of knowing everything and keeps you learning.
Stay curious, stay humble. Wow. We have covered a lot of ground today, journeying through how our minds work, those biases, the manipulation tactics, and these surprising gaps in our knowledge.
It's been quite a deep dive, looking at the brain's shortcuts, how they can mislead us, and how others can exploit them.
And the goal really was to offer a shortcut to being better informed. Right, to get a clearer picture of our own minds and the world.
Exactly, because understanding this stuff isn't just interesting theory, it's about empowerment.
Empowerment, how so?
It's about gaining control over your reactions, making more conscious, better decisions, and fundamentally protecting yourself from being misled or manipulated.
So this knowledge is like mental armor.
That's a great way to put it. Knowledge, truly understood and applied, is your best defense.
So as we wrap up, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. A final provocative thought.
Okay, here's something to chew on. If your mind is constantly being programmed subtly by everything you see and hear, news, social media, conversations, then maybe the biggest challenge, the ultimate frontier of knowledge, isn't just understanding the world outside.
What is it then?
Perhaps it's truly understanding and maybe even starting to unprogram yourself.
Unprogram ourselves.
Wow. So the final question for everyone listening might be,
What assumptions are you making right now? What beliefs do you hold firmly? Could any of them just be a clever trick of your own mind?